Good afternoon. Are you enjoying the rain? Well, yeah, we do need it. That's exactly right. And you know, I've always said if you want to have a good shower, plan a cherry blossom festival. And if you want to have a hurricane, plan a cherry blossom parade. If you remember, a few years ago, we were scheduled to have a parade, and it rained 9 inches in one day. And the committee has threatened me within an inch of my life to ever plan a parade again. I know you're going to really enjoy this portion of the program. This has been an exciting year as Little House on the Prairie has been celebrating its 50th anniversary. Yeah, absolutely. Our moderator, as I said earlier, is no stranger to the Little House world. And he has been a great steward and cheerleader for the Little House. And it's great to have him today to do the honors to interview our distinguished guest, Dean Butler. If you'll please put your hands together for both William Anderson and Dean Butler.
Now what, Bill?
Well, welcome, Dean. We've met in these places a number of times.
Oh yeah, there you go. You're on now.
Am I on?
No, not yet. You are
Now. Thank you. And every time Dean and I get together, I mention to him that we're like two guys that are in two different fraternities, but we have a strong bond, as you do when you're in the Greek system. And my part in Little House on the Prairie goes back to when I was a kid, hearing the books in school, getting fascinated with the history in general. And then I went on to research and write many books about the Ingalls and Wilder families, help with the preservation and restoration of their homes, particularly at Laura and Almanzo's Rocky Ridge Farm in Mansfield, Missouri. And I had the privilege of inviting Dean as our special guest there for your first visit. And I think you were our first TV person to come to Rocky Ridge. And it's been fun ever since.
Bill, I have loved appearing with you wherever we've had the chance to appear. It's great to do it here in Marshfield. This is Laura Ingalls Wilder country, clearly.
Yep.
And so it's nice to be here with you and to talk about all things Laura.
There's a lot to talk about this year, so let's get started,
Okay.
Dean.
Okay.
Little House on the Prairie. Can you imagine that show has been a part of our lives for 50 years? I can't believe I've been alive 50 years, but I distinctly remember watching the wonderful 2-hour movie TV version on NBC, the pilot, as it turned out to be, of Laura Ingalls Wilder's book, Little House on the Prairie. It received immediate accolades, first of all, from the million gazillion people that loved the books. And then NBC, within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, said this is a winner, and they signed Little House on the Prairie as a fall debut on a weekly basis. And here it is 50 years later. You can still watch that show on television. It's never been off the air. And Trip Friendly, whose dad helped bring that to TV, told me recently that the show is seen in 140 countries, and Trip would know. This is phenomenal for this beautiful American pioneer story. And Dean has had a big part of it, of course, marrying Laura Ingalls on the show, AKA Melissa Gilbert, and being a mainstay of the show for its duration, and still being very, very important and involved in this wonderful American heritage. Dean, you have filled me in about this current year and all the great events that are happening, and it sounds like it was a mountaintop experience at Simi Valley recently.
It really was. Simi Valley was an experience for all of us here. And by the way, before I get too much into this, I want members of our Little House family who are here with me today to stand up and just wave. Here they are. We travel in packs. We travel in packs with to do events related to Little House, and a whole group of us are here this weekend, and we'll have the opportunity to meet and greet throughout the weekend. But Simi Valley, Bill, was an event that took root first in 2019. It began with a group of fans, and Allison Arngrim, who's in the back of the room, was a part of that, part of those early conversations. The pandemic hit and it slowed it down, but the 2024 date stayed in people's minds. And as we got into 2021, 2022, I think I came into it I first heard about the event because it was sort of quiet. You know, there was a core group of people who were involved in organizing this. And as all things tend to do in Laura world, in Little House world, in the television world, is that things start to seep out to the group. And more people are hearing about it. And I think I attended my first meeting for this perhaps in early 2023. And just got a taste for where it was going. And as with all things that are so volunteer driven, and this was a hugely volunteer driven event, not to say that money wasn't spent, because it was, because you had to spend money to create what we were creating. But the leadership of the event was largely volunteer, and to create something like this, you need synergy around an idea. And as it got closer, the compression of energy got tighter because this date is coming, and people got much more serious about it. And by the time we really focused on this and began to paint and to build and to publicize and sell tickets, very quickly it just took on this massive life of its own. When it premiered, when it opened on the morning of the 22nd of March, a group of us did a panel in the Little House Town Square tent that we built, and had 500 people in it. First, when we came out on the stage, that blew us away, that there were 500 people there. And we talked about it, and we came out of the tent and looked down the street, and there was a line of people half a mile long going down the street. And the fields, the park, was filled with people. And everywhere you looked, there were smiles and laughter and happiness around this. And one way we sort of are poking each other, saying, it's happening. We did this. It's come together, and people are here, and it looks like they're going to have an incredible time. And I have to say, during that 3 days, it was this extraordinary love fest for Little House, between the tours to Big Sky Movie Ranch, the beautiful set recreations in the gymnasium of the recreation center. And these sets were extraordinary. You could A/B the sets. You could look at screen grabs from the show and look at the sets that we rebuilt. It was the same. It was obviously not the same, but the look was so good. And people came in they came in the door, and the smile opened up on their face. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. One of the great things, I have to say, and all of us as a cast experienced this. Well, when we each first saw it, it was amazing. We all watched as Allison Arngrim walked in with the Good Morning America crew with Melissa and Karen Grassley. And we deliberately kept them out of the room so that the cameras could see their responses as they came into the space. And to see, because they know this better than anybody, to see their faces, their responses to what had been built was amazing. And we saw that over and over and over again throughout that weekend. It was remarkable. It was really the most joyous, happy time that as a cast, as organizers, as people who made the decision to be there, it was really a wonderful, wonderful time. And I think it exceeded all of our expectations. Bill, I'm sorry you weren't there. You would have loved this. Anybody here who loves Laura would have loved being at that event. But Bill, I know you, who have been so deeply involved in all of this and crossed over wonderfully with all of us between the series and the books, which of course you have loved your entire life. I just think you would have been overcome by this.
It crosses my mind over and over about this whole Little House mystique. It brings happiness
it does.
to millions and millions of people. And in times when we have serious things to think about, Little House is a place to go for comfort and inspiration, whether it's Laura's book or a certain episode of the TV show.
Right.
And you just have to marvel at what that woman got started pushing 100 years ago. Those books came out. She was working on those in 1930.
Yeah.
And it just still goes on. And that's the beauty of literature and the media.
Television has been, well, as you know, and we've talked about this many times, Bill and I have spent a lot of time on phone calls and at events like this talking about the synergy between the television show and the books and the impact that the television series, although wildly different in content from the books, but what I think we can all agree on is the spirit of it is right. The tone of it is the same. You feel like they belong together, even though they're quite different, other than that say, for example, the family and the Laura and Almanzo thread that was pulled through this. There's a lot that deviates from that, but those major threads stayed intact, and it's made them very connective and supportive of each other.
I love stories from the cast as to what fans say. And one of my favorites, since I was an educator for 30 years, is when Charlotte told me that a person came up to her and said, "Miss Stewart, I became a teacher because of you." And Allison, we all had a girl like you in our class in elementary.
But did everyone want to be like Nellie? I don't know if everyone wanted to be like Nellie, but everyone knew a Nellie.
And most of them turned out to be darn good human beings like Allison.
It's a big surprise. She is an exceptional human being.
She is so dear with everybody and every fan and every request. And if they say, "Please stick out your tongue," Allison will do it. And that goes with all the cast members I've known and had the fun of working with. Essentially, we've been doing little versions of Simi Valley for years.
For years.
I think about Green Bay, Wisconsin, and all these great places we've gone.
Yeah.
Wilder is alive and well, and this is the year.
Yeah. No, 2024, 50 years, as you said. I mean, the show premiered on September 11th, 1974. The pilot premiered around March 30th of 1974, right around the time we did the anniversary event in Simi Valley. I think it's just going to be an amazing year of Laura and celebrating Little House. We are not only, so we started in Simi, we were in Oklahoma, where were we? We were in Kentucky, thank you. We were in Kentucky like 2 weeks ago. We're here. We're going to be in Pepin. We're going to be in Independence. We're going to be in Connecticut. We are jumping all over the Midwest to the East Coast through the remainder of the year. There are places you can go on Facebook, look at Little House cast events. Actually, and tomorrow when you come to if you come to the event, Jennifer Donati, who was Baby Rose, has a card on her table which will lay out the entire schedule of where we're all going to be. throughout the remainder of the year. It's going to be a big Little House year. We're all very excited about it.
Let's face it, this is a rock star tour.
It's maybe it's a bluegrass tour.
And it will probably go on and on and on to a certain extent.
I think we have an opportunity there is an opportunity, I think, to extend this well into 2025 and keep going. I think that the pandemic, for all of the hardship that the pandemic brought to the country, and clearly it did, for Little House, it was an opportunity for people to find it again and rediscover what they loved about it again. When people were stuck at home and not knowing what to do and what they could do, they were able to tune in and to go into Walnut Grove again and rediscover these families and these stories about hope, resilience, acceptance, forgiveness, community. So many good values embodied in this. I think it gave people hope. We talk to people all the time who talk about Little House as the safe place in their life.
Yes.
And we have a Little House 50 for 50 podcast. How many people have listened to the 50 for 50 podcast? Well, you have, look, there's so many here. I have something to look forward to. Littlehouse50podcast.com is what you can find it. We're everywhere podcasts are streamed. But we've brought people on who have specifically talked about how Little House has been a thing, almost a family member that they didn't have in their own life, to give them a sense of normalcy, of connectedness, of acceptance, of safety. And
safe place.
We're a safe place. We're very proud to be, we're very proud, all of us, to be a part of that kind of legacy. It's been pretty good.
And I have to say, Dean has created a nice big gift for Little House fans, which you'll be able to have in your hands very soon on June 24th.
June 25th.
25th.
June 25th.
The book, Dean Butler's
This is a reader's
memoir.
copy. It can't be sold. I can't give it away. It's got some incorrect things in it. But this is the reader's copy. This is what it will look like. It's been quite an adventure, Bill, to write this. I set out to do this. I mean, there were a couple of reasons. People have been asking me for years, with all the women in our cast who have written books.
Yes.
I kept asking. People kept asking me, when are you going to write your book? And I'm sure Patrick Labrato's gotten this question, Matt Labrato's gotten this question. When are you all going to write your books? And when it really sunk into me about 3 years ago, and after a conversation with Karen Grassley, where she talked about the fact it's going to take you some time to put this together. And then, of course, you're looking for what's that critical mass moment. Well, 2024 and the 50th anniversary becomes the critical mass moment that if I'm going to do this, that 2024 is the time to have it ready to go and ready to release. And I targeted, now, not thinking about the Cherry Blossom Festival, in April, I said, let's be sure it's ready for the summer of 2024. It will be ready for Walnut Grove when we do our 50th. That will be the first Laura event that I have Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond available. But I wanted to synergize around the 50th anniversary, and I think because of that, I wanted to write a book for fans, for people who have loved the program. That's what I decided to focus on. So the threads that get pulled through this are really, I'm always circling back to Little House throughout this book. It made sense to do that. Little House has been the most important thing in my life. Beyond my family, the closest members of my family, the Little House family, the TV family, and the larger community of people have been the most important associations I've had in my life.
And not to sound maudlin, but you've said to me many times, when I go on to the great hereafter,
Yeah, right.
the first line in my obit in the New York Times will be Dean Butler, who played Almanzo
right.
Wilder on Little House on the Prairie.
I wouldn't begin to think that I would get an obit in the New York Times, but
you'll be there.
But you know, if it's even
Probably
the
already
local, you know, if there is still a New York Times by the time that happens, you know, but I really do think that everybody has this sort of central moment in their life, and when you're evaluating your life, you're looking for that central moment. And for me, there's no doubt, there never has been a doubt, that after years of living with it, now, I mean, here, I did this, you know, the people in this room who are with it the longest, I mean, Allison was involved in it on screen for 8 years. I was involved in it online for 5 years, descending from there with our group. But I think for a great many of us, it is the central moment in terms of making an impact, of touching people's lives. Little House is really the thing that's given us that.
And so, mimicking your quip, if I get an obit like that, it probably
Well,
was.
and your Little House is going to be in yours too.
He has written 30-plus books, including Little House on the Prairie topics, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's an honor.
Oh my God,
to
it's
be
an honor.
Connected with
Absolutely,
it.
it's an honor.
Yeah.
I couldn't be prouder of it. I've often said, like, every career has a genesis in a television show, and I say this with all respect because someone was there, but I think I'm so glad that my genesis is Little House on the Prairie and not like My Mother the Car. You know, I just when I think of those, Little House, just yes, absolutely. My Mother the Car, okay, but
Creative,
but not. Yeah.
And I have been privy to be hearing about this book since about the time Dean started it.
Yeah, you were one of my first calls, actually.
Yeah, and I've read it in advance a couple months ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I've learned so much about this guy and what a good mensch he really is. And I know you're going to really enjoy this book, and you can get it pre-ordered if you want it right hot off the press. June 25th.
Yeah, June 25th. Yeah. But yes, it is available for pre-order on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble. So yes, it is available. I hope what you'll do, if you want to get it, I hope you'll walk into your local bookstore and ask for it.
Right.
And I think that would be a really good thing for your local bookstore.
And I think we've got a lot of Missouri folks and regional folks here, and we're real proud over at Rocky Ridge Farm in Mansfield, the home of the Wilders, that Dean will be with us in September for Wilder Days.
Right.
And so stop over there and visit again. It's going to be a nice event.
I love visiting in Mansfield. I've always felt when you go to, and I'm sure most people in this room have been to Mansfield. Who in this room has not been to Rocky Ridge Farm? Oh yeah, okay. So
Run, don't
yeah,
walk.
it's so you go into that space and you feel her presence in the space, and I always feel like when I go into that house, I feel like they've just stepped out for a cup of coffee. Yeah. They've gone into Mansfield to run errands, to go to the hardware store. You just feel like they're there, and it's very special. And having this association that I have with this material, it's very special to me. It really is.
The original Almanzo, of course, was a real guy, married Laura in 1885. And when she started writing those classic books in the 30s, she wrote a book called Farmer Boy, all about his 9th year on an upstate New York farm. And that farm has been meticulously restored and preserved, and it has an aura very similar to Rocky Ridge. And Dean and I have been there many times, and I have to say, the best and most favorite of your documentary work was that beautiful piece you did on the Wilder farm and Almanzo's boyhood, and I was so proud to be in it.
Well, you were terrific. When I went there and saw it, the Almanzo Wilder farm in Burke, New York. I always say Malone, but they'll say no, it's
In
Burke,
between.
New York.
Yeah.
Right near, like 100 yards from the Trout River. It's a beautiful, beautiful site. That's another one of those places where if you've read the Little House books and you know the Garth Williams illustrations of the books, when they restored the house, Garth Williams drew his drawings in the house, but he captured it the way he thought it should be, and the way the way Laura described it, the way Laura and Rose described it in Farmer Boy. And when the association acquired the house, they put it back together just the way Garth Williams drew it. So when you walk in, you really feel like you're stepping into the book. It's beautiful, and the red house and the white trim and the beautiful barn that Laura describes so beautifully in Farmer Boy. I mean, it's really a gift. The first time I saw it was fall, and the leaves were changing, and the apples were in the trees. It was just like, oh my God, this is incredible.
And one of these days, tomorrow or the next, Almanzo is getting his own star on the Walk of Fame here.
Yes.
And Dean and I get to unveil it or say a few words there too.
So, oh, do we? Okay.
I think that
Nicholas hasn't told me that yet.
I think that guy deserves some credit.
Yeah.
As he used to say, grumble. Well, Bessie gets all the money from this book. I'd like to get a few royalties myself. So I think she'd dole him out a few bucks here.
Well, good. He should get something. He was a part of it.
Yeah, yes, very much a part of that
Yeah,
family.
yeah.
Unsung hero, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Dean, when I read your manuscript for the first time, I noticed how your own boyhood, although, good heavens, a good century after Almanzo and Laura, it had qualities of that copacetic life close to the earth that they had.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your growing up, would you please?
So, I grew up in Northern California. I was born in Edmonton, or rather in Prince George, British Columbia, because my father was in the United States Air Force during those years following the Korean War, when we were so concerned about the Russians coming over the pole and to attack the United States. So he was stationed there, I was born there, but my life really took place, the early years of my life took place in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a fifth generation Californian. My family first came to California before the gold rush and settled in the San Francisco Bay Area. They were involved in business and agriculture. And I spent summers at a family ranch that was founded by my great-great-grandfather in 1885. And on this ranch, growing up, there was no electricity, there was no running hot water. We had coal oil lamps and heated water for baths on the stove. When I was a small boy, we did our chores every day. We swept the decks, and we had horses. We rode every day. My grandfather loved his horses, and we went on long rides around the countryside, looking down in the hills overlooking San Francisco Bay. So from our back porch, you could look straight into San Francisco, which is 40 miles away. And so you could be, for me growing up, I could be completely detached from the civilized world in an hour and 15 minutes could be standing in Union Square in San Francisco. So it was an extraordinary place to spend my summers as a boy. And I learned about multi-generational family living. I learned about doing chores. I learned about cooperation. I learned about saddling a horse, bridling a horse, cleaning horses. It was a chance to be together as a family. You learned how to talk to each other. You played games at night. We played parcheesi and dominoes, all these things. And so and I didn't really think about all that as I was getting the opportunity to step into Little House. But those early years really colored and shaped my comfort with the whole style, where the show was placed in history. The idea of being around horses and carriages and in the dirt and all of that was completely natural to me, and it just felt right. So I think I like to think that, and Michael Landon didn't know anything about my background. Susan Sukman, who was our casting director, didn't know anything about my background. But I think as I've shared in the book, and I think any actor will acknowledge this, and if they don't, they need to sort of figure it out, that casting directors make decisions about people that they're going to hire or not hire in about 8 seconds. You know, you step in the door and someone knows if you're right or you're not right. Everything you do after that will either reinforce, you can tear down an impression, but it's hard to change a first impression. So if someone gets it, they get it. And Little House was something, I mean, look, I probably went into the first Little House meeting as I did so many meetings. I don't know how Susan actually, would have seen me here, but I probably walked in with a blue blazer and khaki pants and a button-down shirt on to do that meeting. Now, maybe that was exactly the right thing, but in retrospect, when I met Michael for the first time, there was, I had come in looking pretty formal, and when I met Michael for the first time, it was, the denim shirt open to his, halfway down his chest, and the gold chains, and the Carrera sunglasses, and the cigarette in the teeth, and the jeans literally sprayed on with a gun. I mean, tight jeans, the deep tan, and I'm thinking, this is not Charles Ingalls. How is this Charles Ingalls?
No beard.
But he understood what it was that he was presenting to people, and you get that really quickly. So I wasn't in any way I was very green walking into this. What he saw was that I was a very sort of a proper young man. I came in dressed appropriately, what seemed appropriate. I didn't think about jeans and and an open shirt at that point. I was going for a job interview. I needed to be professional looking. So I didn't know that professional was going to turn into a hat and dog-ear boots and all of that. But it was magical. Michael and Susan clearly saw something in me that was deeply rooted in who I was raised to be. And I was able to, at times better than other times, bring that upbringing, that whatever it is that makes me me, I was able to bring that to this work that I did through the years. And the fact that it has, for all of us, has sustained for 50 years, is just an amazing thing.
I was thinking as I read your manuscript that Michael didn't live to write his memoirs, of course, but he left a legacy.
Oh my
and
God,
all
yes.
of you from the cast that have written your stories, you helped make him live still and gave him a lot of credit due in the writing of your memoirs, which is a very good thing.
Ooh, this is something, this could be sort of fun here. I want to see where
Do you
this
have an
is. I just want to read a quick thing here because I think this is, I was going to read something else, but this just occurred to me based on what we're saying. The chapter is called Home is the Nicest Word There Is. If you search online for Laura Ingalls Wilder quotes, this is one of the most popular you'll find, except you won't find it in any of the Little House books. It was written for the premiere of our show, an episode titled Harvest of Friends, and delivered by Laura Melissa Gilbert. The script for that first show is credited to writers John Hawkins and William Putnam, but that line is unmistakably Michael Landon. I would be willing to bet my old buckboard that Michael wrote it and inserted it into the Harvest of Friends teleplay. Michael rewrote, polished, and edited every Little House script, as much as any line of dialogue ever written in any of our episodes. Home is the nicest word there is, defined Michael's deepest wish. More than anything, what animated his creative vision was the desire for family, warmth, and the safety of home. He wanted it for himself, for his children, for his television family, and for your family too. In an all too short life, Michael worked tirelessly to deliver this single comforting idea.
Thanks for clearing that up as far as the attribution, because
It always cracks me up when I see it, because everywhere it's always Laura Ingalls Wilder. Home is the nicest word there is, not hers.
Laura had a lot of good one-liners
Yes.
in her books, but
That just wasn't one of
not that one. And
Yeah.
organizations like the Laura Ingalls Wilder Research and Legacy Association, they strive to preserve this history in its most pristine way. By the way, you and I have something else in common.
What's that?
We're the winners of the
Oh, yes, thank you. The
Legacy
Laura Ingalls Wilder
yes.
Legacy Award.
Yes.
Yes.
And
The LRA Legacy Award.
yes, and that organization has done so much to keep Wilder going as far as the literature, and Allison is presented there, Dean's been there. So it's a nice amalgamation of television and books.
Yeah, no, what's fascinating, but when you go to one of the Laura Paloozas, gotta love that name.
Yes.
The Laura Palooza, you get this very under the hood look at Laura. You know, and there's really no discussion of television at this event. I mean, when you go
But
to
it's
Laura
there.
Palooza, they talk about it,
Yeah.
but it's about the academic study of Laura. It's always very revealing. I have loved, and I talk about this a lot in the book, I have loved the blending back and forth, being able to be in both worlds with this property. It would have been easy just to say, oh, I was a part of the television show. I mean, we all could do that, and we have done that. But because I was fascinated with producing, because during those years, I loved watching the people who were bringing the show into existence. I mean, actors have the smallest part to do in any show. Actors are the visible part of the show, but it's like the iceberg, what's going on under the surface. If the actors are what's above the water, the people below the waterline who are actually making the show, it's a huge contribution. Time and energy of that contribution is enormous. And I became fascinated by watching those people, that group of people, and we had a great team of people on Little House who made this. But I think I really became fascinated with the blank page at that point, and that led me to want to have some way of impacting the discussion about what Little House was, and then with something like Laura, whether Almanzo Wilder, Life Before Laura, or Little House on the Prairie, The Legacy of Laura Ingalls Wilder, I was able to get inside the origin stories of Little House. a little bit more and drill down into that and share my own take on those things. And I think, I came to feel that producers and writers are really the ones on a show that have the most fun. The actors get an enormous amount of credit. They get too much credit when it's good, and they get too much blame when it's bad. But there are so many people involved, and I think it's those people who are deeply involved in that blank screen to the finished product that have the most fun in making shows. And I have loved that part of the process. It's really a teamwork experience. I mean, television, film is a collaborative, bring a group of people together, craft that team, and make something that's wonderful if you can. Make the best thing you can. It's great.
Dean, it just came to me. We made a pledge that you were going to explain the metamorphosis from Almanzo to
I mean, how Almanzo became Almanzo?
Yeah, Manly's cool. He was actually called that by Laura.
Yeah.
You were Manly.
Yeah.
But how did the name morph into Almanzo?
Well, it didn't even morph. It just dropped that way.
out.
And I always
Lucy.
blame Lucy Lee Flippin.
She'll take the blame.
Yeah, well, she looked at me askance. Now, anybody who's met Lucy, she's a lovely, lovely person. Lucy was Eliza Jane in the Little House series. Lucy was the first person to say the name on camera. And she said Almanzo. Now, we'd all been saying Almanzo during the audition period. So I guess in the culture of the company, of the show, that's what Michael decided it was. In all candor, I think Michael read the books, but Michael was not prepared to be a slave to the books in any way, shape, or form. And this may have been a little statement by Michael, is if I say it's Almanzo, it's Almanzo. And you may all think it's Almanzo, but he says it's Almanzo. The world, the larger world, knows this man as Almanzo Wilder because of Michael Landon. And but when I heard Laura actually say the words herself, so in 2008 when I was making Almanzo Wilder, Life Before Laura, there was a little CD in the bookstore of the Wilder farm, and it's called Laura Speaks, and it's a CD. It's 27 seconds long, and at the very end of that 27 seconds, she talks about the man of the house, Almanzo.
Yes.
And that sort of said it for me. I said, well, here it is. 30 years. I've been wrong for 30 years, but I'm not going to be wrong anymore. From now on, with all respect to Michael, who did it the way he wanted to do it, but the man's name was Almanzo. So for me, it's always Almanzo Wilder now, and which makes sense. Almanzo, you can call me Manny.
Yes.
Pleasure to meet you, Manly. I mean, how you got that from my name is Almanzo to pleasure to meet you, Manly, and my friends call me Manny, I just don't know. I don't know why we didn't stop. I don't get why we didn't stop and think, wait a minute. I mean, no one brought that up. And of course, on our set, if Michael didn't call out something, it was not going to be questioned. So, and look, it all worked beautifully. I say now it's like Cole Porter, tomato, tomato,
Yes,
potato,
exactly.
potato,
Yeah.
Almanzo, Almanzo. I mean, it's all the same. Doesn't matter. But it is a distinction. And it's fun trivia now.
You answer to all of them.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Alamanzi, Zaldamo.
I heard somebody
I'll
call
answer
him
to all those names.
Alfonso.
Alfonso.
once.
Someone says, I don't know that I think I would correct that.
Right.
But the others, I'll go with all those. Yeah.
I met Michael Landon once on the set.
Wow.
And he was discussing the differentiation between the books and what he was doing. And at that time,
You never told me this. This is like a,
Well, we never have a chance.
you've never told me you met Michael.
We never have a chance. We're always signing
Okay,
things.
okay,
and
okay.
Chatting with all these
Well,
great
tell,
people.
tell,
I was just going to say. And at that time, I had the best college summer job as anybody. I never flipped burgers once, not that I wouldn't have, but my summer college job was in DeSmet, South Dakota, where the Ingalls family lived during the last 5, 6 books of the series. And I gave tours of their historic homes, and I did research and restoration and writing. And the show was in its height then, and our visitation just swooped up from TV. And I happened to be in California and got to the set. Wow. And Michael was interested that I, was actually working in one of the real sites. And he said to me, I simply can't take those 2,000 pages of the series and make them into weekly TV. A lot of the books are introspective, the characters, what Laura was thinking, and so on. And he said there isn't enough action. It's beautiful prose, but there's not enough action to make episodes that go one after the other for 52 weeks of the year. So he explained it well, but you have also explained it, that the heart and the feeling in the weekly episodes matches well and meshes well with the books Mrs. Wilder wrote.
The way I've characterized it is that Laura wrote about what people did. Mm-hmm. Michael wrote about what people felt.
Exactly.
And so we've sort of said the same thing there. And I think together they're a wonderful composite picture of what Little House is.
I think that's a perfect spot
for some questions?
For us to start questions, because it's 10 to 2. We've got about 10 minutes.
And we've got to get to a
We're all rushing to an elementary school to talk to little kiddies now.
Questions?
Angela, don't you have a question? Yes. I know you too well.
You guys answered my question about the LIWLRA, and so thank you for doing that. All of us appreciate it.
It's a wonderful organization. And the next conference is in South Dakota in 2025.
Right, the summer of 2025. We don't know where and we don't know when, but it will be in South Dakota.
Yes.
And Dean, thank you for everything that you have done, but for the TV show and and you were right. We don't talk about the TV show too much, but a lot of us still love it.
Of course.
So it's nice to have you guys blending the both of them.
So the comment is that even though the Laura Ingalls Wilder Legacy and Research Association doesn't openly talk about the show while they're there, conclaving on academic matters related to Little House, they still love it.
They do.
And that's cool.
For Laura.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
And you too, Angela. Question?
I do have a question. What was it like working with Blanche, the ape? I just watched that episode, and it's such a fun episode. And I was wondering,
Really?
Victor,
I think of that episode, and I think that's one of the episodes where we really jumped the shark. It's like, what is an orangutan doing in Walnut Grove? This was like, and I write about this at the end of the book, and I appreciate that you feel like it was a fun thing. I often think, Rose had a scene with the orangutan right there, and I'm thinking, was there a piece of glass between the orangutan and Rose? I mean, if that orangutan had had an inkling to do something, these animals are so strong, they could have snatched up Jennifer or her sister Sarah and boom, you just don't know what could have happened. Victor French, who of course the world came to love as Mr. Edwards, Victor French could act with anything. And anyone or anything, and I put Blanche as, I guess, another being, a different kind of being. Victor did a spectacular job with the orangutan. It's an episode that sort of loses me a little bit. I don't quite get it. But look, we don't all love every episode. They aren't all perfect. Some are stronger than others. That's one I look at and go like, wow, what was on everybody's mind when that came into the story room? But okay, we did it. When you're doing something like a series, the material's coming at you so fast that you don't really have a chance to, you just like, you're working on something and 2 days before you're going to start shooting it, the next script hits the table. And so you say, oh, wonder what we're doing next. And you go through this, you go like, okay. And you finish the show you're in and you learn the lines and you step into the next one. It's not a process that really allows for a great deal of introspection on the part of the actor to like asking the questions, what are we doing here? What is this really about? That work is done by the writers and the producers before a script gets to the actors, and the actor's job at that point is just to buy in and do it. And we all did. So we all loved Blanche. I don't know why, but we all loved Blanche. Yeah, cute orangutan. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, let's go back. I saw this one here. Yes.
I was just curious. I've been rewatching Who's the Boss?
Oh, yes.
How you liked working with Catherine Hellman?
Yeah. So the question is about doing an episode of Who's the Boss in an episode. It was their first season, an episode called Mona Gets Pinned, where there's a big kiss with the much older Catherine Hellman. That point, she's, that character was sort of a bad girl, a naughty girl, and she's dating this Sigma Chi guy, and the Sigma Chi is come and sing their Sigma Chi girl song, and after the big dance, there's the big kiss with Catherine Hellman. She was amazing. A lovely person, wonderful actress. That was a situation where, like, I never met Melissa before we started working together. That Michael did not do mix and match sessions. Catherine Hellman knew she was going to have to kiss some college-aged guy. She came to the audition. She wanted the kiss to happen beforehand. She kissed everybody that came in to find out who the kiss was going to be on camera. So I guess I delivered pretty well on that kiss. Yes.
As actors, during a weekly show, what did your work week look like?
I'm sorry, the last part of the question?
What did the work week
It
look
was,
like?
well, so what did the work week look like? The Little House was shot over a 7-day period. You'd start, if you started on a Monday, you would finish that episode the next Tuesday, and the following episode would start on Wednesday. And you would just literally roll from episode to episode to episode with holiday breaks in there. You occasionally had to stop if scripts weren't ready, but basically our show was on schedule all the time. And so when you started, you just kept shooting, and the show ends, the new one begins the next day. The script changes and on you go. And that's the way it worked. It was really, it was business. And you came in and you hopefully knew your stuff. You rehearsed, you shot, you rehearsed, you shot, and you just moved through this material as expeditiously and creatively as you could. It actually was for television shows, the comment was, it sounds like long hours. It's not uncommon for television shows to work 14, 15 hours a day. Little House was a 10, 11 hour a day, 12 hour a day max situation. Michael felt very strongly about people having a home life. He knew people were married, they had children. He wanted them to be home at dinner time. He wanted to be at home at dinner time to see his children. So, for the women, it was always an early start on the day because of hair and makeup, particularly for women. Hair was a big deal on Little House. Guys could come in at 7:30, makeup, cup of coffee, put the clothes on, you're ready to be on set at 8. The women would come in at 5:30 to be ready to go at 8. So for the women, it was a long day, but the crew call was basically 7 to 7 to 6. So it was like an 11-hour day. It was not bad, really not bad at all. Yes. Oh, what? Okay. I know we have to, but you've been patient.
Were you real uncomfortable about having to kiss Melissa Gilbert?
There's a whole chapter about that kiss. So that kiss was a turning point moment in the life of the series. It certainly was a turning point moment for Melissa in her life. It was a turning point moment for me in terms of my character's life in the show. The series was not the same after that kiss happened. I mean, Laura was out of pigtails. You never saw her in pigtails again. She was a young woman, just sort of in the course of a kiss, then like it's a different deal. So the show marched on, taking Laura into young womanhood and young adulthood at that point. So it was that kiss was a big thing for the show.
One more time.
Okay.
So talking about scripts that are in place already, what happens when somebody's getting sick? Do you have to change quickly, or they just plug right through it?
If someone's sick, what happens if someone gets sick? Depending on how sick it was, they'd bring a doctor to the set to give you a vitamin B shot or an antibiotic or whatever you needed. I mean, you had to really be sick to not show up. Schedules could be altered. Our producer, Kent McCrae, was masterful at moving the board around to put if someone had a problem, he could alter the day and reshuffle the day, and you'd shoot other scenes. But, basically, I think when you're in that environment, you've got so much adrenaline working all the time that unless it's something really catastrophic, you just don't get sick. You just don't. Yeah.
Dean.
Yes, Bill.
I think that there should be a week-long seminar on Little House, and you need a talk show. You're the best,
thank you,
You're the
Bill.
best genial host since Johnny Carson.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. The cast will be around in the next couple days, and thanks again, Nicholas, for bringing this to fruition.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's give them another round of applause. Dean Butler and William Anderson. We've finished this section of the program in time that you can reach the Cherry Blossom Tea. I know